Now we have this app page category order here. And what I'm going to set up is when I do edit categories, I'm going to pull up a new page here. So I need to design this page. And this is going to be a page that shows up once for category app page category for ordering. And so I can delete quite a few things off of this. I'm going to delete buttons for doing anything. I'm going to have this always updatable. I do need to maintain. If I delete an element on action ever, I can show it. There it is. I want to undelete this div right here. Go. So we've got detail. Now our status is back there. I don't want the status back. What I want. Actually, I didn't lose my X. I just reordered it on accident. So let's hide deleted. Let's click away and let's just make sure this is in the header. There we go. So that's right there. App page category order. So I don't need any of this content in this page. What I am going to need is one div that I'm at the top. I'm going to say drag to read order. That's been done. And then I need to put a repeating list inside of that. That repeating list is going to refer to the app page category for reordering. App page category for reordering. That page right here. And on this page, I'm going to want to put a few things. Let's add a first div. And then let's add a left div and another div inside of it. Inside of this, I want a small heading and a small text paragraph. This is going to be the field for the category name. This is going to be the category description from the field category description. And what I would like is a little indication that this page is kind of set up for dragging. And I'm going to use some existing mechanisms here. We have this image. I'm not going to use this image. I'm just getting that element because it has some styling that I want. I need this left to right, not top to bottom. Actually, I'm going to end up using this button actually for edit too. So let's put this on the end. And so I want this left to right. So I'm going to change this parent div to a display. Where's our display? There's flex. So I'll show everything left to right. I'm going to duplicate this. Actually, I need that. I remove this from this div. Remove that. And what I would like is this main value here to be a thing called flex grow 1. I think we used it earlier, but it's going to basically prioritize itself and make the whole div itself pick up as much space as it possibly has available to it. I want to give these a little bit more space though. So we can add some margin. Start with 1 EM on each. That was a little space there. I'm going to clone those just styling settings over here to give that its own thing. And I want this whole thing is going to be draggable. but I want this specific click to edit. And this icon, I'm actually going to replace, I don't know if you are familiar with feather icons, but it's a simple, um, website with free icons that you can use. I'm going to grab this menu icon, and actually I don't want it white though. So we use this blue over here. Our blue is kind of an action item for us. So I'm going to use that blue in this app, change the color. I'm going to download that menu right there. Going to then change this specific image to a menu icon. So that'll show. I can actually tell that the way this template is set up, this image icon white is the WebKit filters is actually changing the color. So what I'm going to just do is I'm going to remove that, and but then carry forward that max width of 1. I think he had rem there. Rem is a more responsive EM. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just do 1 EM. So actually, yeah, that's pretty small. I think that needs to be like 2.5. It seems to be really obvious that this is a drag this item thing. And then this item is going to be is going to do a click event to open up this specific category for editing its content as well. Edit category. And so I'm going to go ahead and say, when I click that, I want to open page into container. And the page I want to open is my category detail. I want to open it into the same spot we're opening all of our pages into that lightbox on header. And I want to pass the current record, which is going to be the category, into it. So that'll be good. And just in case I clone this later, I'm going to already pre-build the run flow on app header page to show the lightbox. But the reality is this is going to show up in a lightbox. So this lightbox will already be live on the page, but it's just going to cover our bases in case we need to. So now we have a little category here that looks like a draggable thing for us to reorder. Let's go ahead and clarify that this repeating list element is going to be ordered based off of the category's order settings, top to bottom. So starting the lowest number at the top. So it's going to be ascending. I am going to get this from the categories collection. I'm going to get all fields. Again, our user creator field record access is already doing our filtering for us. So I don't have to worry about that. And so this should give us all this here. Actually, the one thing I do want to do is run an autosave on a change event. And this is because when you have a list of properties that you want to always order by a specific value, let's say you're doing drag and drop, Kanban boards, whatever it is, when you do a sort method, we use the data from the targeted value that you're sorting by, and we go ahead and use it to sort it. If you reorder it, which we're going to do in a second here, and when you do autosave in a change event, it's going to go see the new order and save the new order into that data collection. And so by doing autosave, I'm essentially getting the benefit of auto-saving the new order every time I make a change without having to go update every record, which is really cumbersome because you actually have to update a record for every single field that you have in the array. Can get kind of cumbersome. So I'm going to do on the change event where it automatically does that for me. So now let's go to our categories. And there's some things that we need to do here to set up this drag and drop scenarios here. And it's all going to revolve around events that have to do with drag. If you search drag in your events, you've got all of these events right here, and we're going to use quite a few of them. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to say, I want this whole div to be draggable. So I'm going to, on this div, say this is draggable. Now that means I can drag it on the page, which is a normal HTML thing to do. When I hover over this page, I want to make sure I can click it. And so there's a couple, it looks like I can grab it. So there's one thing I'm going to do is on the cursor setting, I'm going to do a grab icon to show that. I'm going to override that on this icon right here for edit. And let's do padding to do 0.5. Yeah. Actually, it's going to make it smaller. I don't want to do padding. Take that back. But I actually want to override the grab on the edit icon because that's actually going to be a normal click. So we're going to do pointer, which is your normal click action. So it'll override there, but everything else is going to look draggable, which is great. So I've made this draggable. Now it's when I'm dragging it, it will look like it is draggable because of the grab icon. And I need to do a few things here. One, I need to give myself a location that I can drag it to. And it's interesting, but when you create these repeating lists, remember we're dragging them basically on top of other repeating lists or other rows in the repeating list. So we're going to put everything here for both dragging and dropping, and it's going to interact with the other pages with a combination of run flow on pages and actions that we'll control here in this set of actions. So I am going to first create my drop zone. So I'm going to put a div on this page or inside of our full page here. I'm going to do a couple of things on this div. I'm going to do it so this div is always going to show up at the top of a page. So I want this page to be full width and I want it to always be at the top. And I don't want to take up any pixel width on the page when I show this div. So I want it to be absolutely positioned inside of the row itself. So to do that, I need to first give the parent div here a position of relative. That's what this right here is. So initially this doesn't do anything, but it basically says anything absolutely positioned inside of this, or that's a child of this parent element, I want you to use this box here, this div as a reference, instead of using the whole page as a reference, which is the default. So I'm going to choose position, and now I'm going to go absolute on that div. So it's going to put it right at the top, right there, because it's ignoring all the HTML context. It's just looking for a position to be a relative to. I am going to give this what I'm actually going to do, I want to put this on a class because I'm going to use classes to change the look of this. So I'm going to say this is our drop div target. I'm going to do a couple of things. So on the drop div target, let's copy this setting here, delete it from the bottom, add it to this class right here, save it. Excellent. I want it to be, you'll see I'm using kind of CSS code as well as all props and use props intermittently. As you get more and more comfortable, you might jump around and use it, but I just want to show you some examples here. So, actually, I don't want height to be, I want height to be 0 by default. I want my width to be 100%. I want my background color to be, do I still have that copied? No. I want to grab the blue that I had. So let's grab that blue. So when I see it, that's what I want it to look like. And I want to do a transition effect. So when this transition happens, because this is going to change as I'm dropping and when I start dragging. So I want that to kind of not be abrupt. And so what I'm going to do is do a under transition all 0.5 seconds and then ease in out. I'm not going to be honest, I'm not the best at CSS transitions. I don't know all the rules, but basically this is saying for transitions, all CSS properties are going to follow these rules. I could indicate which ones specifically if I want to just height, but not color to change. With this transition effect, like if I wanted some immediately, I could say, I only want these ones to take a change over seconds, but these other ones I want it to happen instantaneously if they change. But I'm just saying, I want everything to change over the course of half a second. And so that's that. And then ease in out basically says like start a little slowly, go slower, go a little faster in the middle and the end a little bit slower. If I do linear, it would all happen proportionally at the same rate through the whole transition period. Really easy to visualize. If you do something like transition from something from like the left to the right of a screen, you can see that change really easily. And you're going to see it for sure whenever we show this. So this is my initial class. It has a background color, but because the height is 0, I'm not going to see it at all. A couple of things I'm going to add to this drop div are some utility classes that I'm going to use in 2 instances. One, dragging activated. And then 2 is drop zone entered. So this is going to give us visual feedback to the user to know where they're dragging and where they can drag something into. So dragging activated is basically just going to update the height of this to, let's say, 10 pixels. It's big enough to show here's a spot for you to do something on, but it's not totally disruptive. So 10 pixels there. And then I'm also going to do something when the drop zone is entered. I want them to know that, hey, like you're successfully going to drop this in this spot. And so what I'm just going to do is change the background color from blue to green when I do that. So they'll see this green color indicating, hey, this is good to drop right now. So these are two classes I'm going to use based off of some actions that I will be using in this process. So there's a few things that we're going to do in this process, or there's a few events that we're going to use. First of all, we're going to use our drag start event. This is when we begin dragging. So drag and start event from selected row. Let's do another flow. Drag started on another flow. Show drop zones. We're going to say drop zone eligible, drop zone enter, eligible, drop zone exited. We're going to say dropped on it. Active drop zone, actually. We're going to say drop, drag end. And I think I'm probably missing something, but actually, yeah. Drag end. All style classes dragging. There we go. So we're going to work backwards here a little bit, but this is going to be something at the end of the drag is just going to remove all of the special styling. So we're not going to see the blue drop zones anymore. And so I'm just going to do 2 remove style class processes here. It's going to be dragging activated from the drop div. And then it's going to be dragging drop zone entered rather from the drop div. That's all this is going to do, but this is going to be referenced in this process. And so on drag start event from selected row, we're going to run a flow on page. This is where it's going to get interesting. I want to run a flow on every other instance of this page, but not this one, because this is the one I'm dragging when I start this. So I'm going to target the app page for reordering page, and I'm going to target my drag started on another flow, show drop zones. It's actually another row, not flow. And I'm going to run this on all except the current page. If I didn't do this, it would run it on its current page itself. I'm going to stop it from happening there. And then on this flow, I'm going to add the style class of dragging activated to my target div, showing those blue sections that I want. So that will start the process. When I start an event, I also want to do I want to set a couple of variables, basically to make it clear that this is the specific row I am moving. So I'm going to do, I don't need these weights actually. Do the weight. I'm going to set first array index dragging row. I'm going to set a variable of ID dragging. I'm going to set these always to the root page, just so it's easy to reference from any of these other pages that I do. So array index of dragging row is going to be a variable named call that, and it's going to be from the variable on the page of array index. And so this isn't 100% needed in many circumstances, but array index is a variable that exists every time you use a repeating list. On every row, there's a variable name called array index. And that's going to be the where it is in the array, starting with 0. So the first thing in a list is 0. The next thing is 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. But starting at 0 is the important complex idea there, because you're going to use 0 or 1 instead of like 1 or 2. So we know the array index of the row that we're dragging in this case, and you'll see how we're going to use that in a second. And then on the root page, we also want ID of dragging record. We're going to use that for an update record action, because we're changing the order of our categories. We want to change the order of all of the related. Actually, we'll probably not do it, because we're going to actually update on page load of this. We're going to update the order on each individual related category record. So I don't think we'll do that. We'll see if we end up using this. I forget. But either way, if we do use it, we're basically going to have an easy way to know the ID of the record being dragged by doing this right here. So categories, ID, record. Get that. So these are going to be variables that are set right away for us. Now, that's going to what we do on drag start. Let's do drag end. So at the end of a drag operation, this is the event that triggers from the item that's being dragged. We're going to do drag start event. Let's do drop drag end. Drop drag end. So this is going to be drag end from dragging row. The most important thing that we do here is simply we need to run the flow on all pages, so that if I drop this in a location that isn't in an eligible drop zone, I basically just need to remove all the styling classes. So I want to again run on the app page category for reordering. I want to run the remove all style classes, and so that's just going to remove it from all of them. I could do all except current page, or I could just do it on all pages. I'm going to go ahead and just do on all pages here. So it'll just remove the blue and green from those divs and make it look like a normal space at that point, or a normal row at that point, without any of the extra stuff. So I've got my drag start and I've got my drag end events on the whole div that is what I am dragging. Now, the other thing I want to do is I have my droppable element. And so first I want to make sure that this is droppable. So it means it can be dropped on. And then I might need to add that to the dragging div too. I forget actually. I'll figure that out on testing. But this is important because we're going to be doing on drag enter. We're going to be doing something on drag leave. And we're going to be needing to do drop. Actually, drop might happen on the other. We'll find out. Drag enter. Drag start event. Actually, we're going to do eligible drop zone entered. Okay. Eligible drop zone exited. And so we'll just call these appropriately. If the eligible drop zone is entered, what we want to do is set add style class. We've already had the height style class by default here, but we want to do the drop zone entered so that it turns green to this specific div. So that's all we're going to do on drop zone entered. And then when it's exited, we are going to remove that style class from the same drop div. And it's going to be on this specific row. So each row will take care of itself. So we don't have to worry about doing anything on other pages in this instance. Now let's go back to our page and let's look at our event. So we've got drag start, drag end for the thing that is being dragged. We have the events, some options here. Drop when dragged element is being dropped. It's not when it's dropping an eligible thing. When I did drag in at the end of a drag operation. So what I think these in our case here are going to be mutually take care of each other, but I'm not 100% certain. We will find out as we test this, but I think these are the same and we'll take care of everything we want, because really all these are doing is just making sure we are removing the style classes from everything else. At some point, I might want to do something with drag over so that it's clear that I can drag this specific item in that spot, but I'm doing basically that styling on the actual div as opposed to the thing that I'm dragging instead. And so when I go back to my drop div, on drop, I'm going to trigger a flow. I'm going to update the ordering. And what I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and just be redundant and do run flow on pages for all of the app category for ordering. I'm going to remove all style classes. And I'm going to move a item in the repeating list. And this is where that value that we set earlier is going to be important. So the item that move is the one that was being dragged initially. So if we recall, I did the array index of dragging row. I named it that when I started dragging it. And the target item is going to be on this page that I am doing it from. So it's going to be from the variable on this page, current page, array index. And I'm going to want to put it right before because I'm doing this on top. If I wanted this on top or bottom, I could do before or after. I could even have different drop targets that would change the location I dropped it to. In this case, I'm just going to do it on top. And the last thing I want to make sure that I want to trigger a repeating list change event. Because again, if you recall, we set the repeating list to, on a change event, auto save. And it means it's going to auto save all of the new data that I have given this. And I've given it a new data point for its order. So it's going to update the order property on our categories when we drop it. So we're going to go back here. And the last thing that I was going to do, and I realized that I actually am going to instead on page load, every time I load a category page, I'm going to do a update records. Actually, I'm going to do I think it was our mask record. There we go. Data collection mask change. I'm going to target the relational records associated with the category, or rather, I'm going to just get all fields, but these are the ones I'm going to target, and I'm going to filter it by the ones related to this current record field value of the category on the page by getting the ID. And the field I'm going to update in this collection is going to be the order, because I want the order of that to match the master order essentially on the category here. And the new value I'm going to give it is from the current record value of the order on the category on the page. So category is order. And so every time this page loads, it's going to run that update for all of its associated related records. And this is important mainly because when I've set this up, I'm going to reorder it. That's going to update one of the records in the ordering. That's going to trigger this to run autosave. And because on this page, the autosave is updating, I'm also going to run page binding for our categories, which is going to basically re-trigger the page binding events and then update all of the associated records for this category. So this should give me everything that I need to make sure this page is going to look and feel how I want. Now, I do want to make sure that this is going to look right. I'm going to give this is a little bit foreshadowing of what I think will happen versus what I know will happen. But I want to give this a little bit of space on this page. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of padding for this. And I think that will help it space better. And associated with that, actually, I believe our default lightboxes sometimes have max widths that always make sense for bigger potential lightboxes. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a max width of 800 and max width of 1000 and height of 800. So that if that specific lightbox is a little bit bigger, that's okay. So I now have an operational category that pops up for a new category. All that's taken care of. For a new idea, let's try edit categories. I didn't do that yet. So if I do edit categories, all I want to do is I want to open this category page here. So I'm going to open page into the container. So the page to open is going to be our at page category order. I'm going to open it into the app header page, the lightbox there. I'm going to pass I don't need to pass any record context here actually, because this is going to automatically load all of the categories filtered by the current user logged in. So we don't have to worry about that. What I do have to do is make sure I, along with this action, run the flow to show the lightbox for that. So now I can add an idea, I can add a category, I can edit a category. And then I also know that I've set this up already so that if I hit edit category here, I'm doing the same thing for the edit category page right there. Page idea detail, page category order. So we're good there. All of these should work. We believe this is set up correctly. We want this page to refresh automatically for a few different scenarios. So I'm going to set up our page binding process to listen to our ideas being updated. I want it to update if our categories are updated. And I also want it to update if our scores are updated. So ideas, page bind, and I also wanted to update if our board is updated. So our board itself is going to show up in the name and there's the filter. So board. So now if any of these data collections that are related to the data that should be on this page are updated, at that moment, we'll go ahead and rerun the page binding action and refresh that data. So that should keep us fresh. So like if I'm editing something on one of these pages for a new board, it will automatically update it on this page right here. Now I don't have a edit board setup yet. And I don't think I need a new box for that. Well, I'll go ahead and add a edit board page too. So duplicate this page, board detail, create new page. I'll throw this over here. So this is going to be board name. Actually, I'm just going to delete this because this is already going to be taken care of in this board. This is going to be for board name. This is board from board name. This is going to be board description. And then when I load the page, I'm going to check, I need to do that set value. I'm going to check the current record from the board equals board, set state edit. We do confirm delete of a board and delete this. And it's actually what we will want to delete is two different things. We want to delete just the idea. We just delete the ideas related to the board. Ideas, get off fields and filter by the board, or if I go field value board ID. So we're going to delete the ideas on the board first, and then we're going to delete the board themselves. And we're going to close this box out. These will all already save automatically, edit, and done will automatically do their own things as well. So we don't have to worry about anything else on this page. We just recycled those other pages really fast there.